using the graphic card hardware to run the OpenGL. That means maybe we need more power. That means if on the laptop means waste more battery power.
I might be off base here a little bit, but I think you'd be hard pressed these days to find a laptop computer that doesn't have OpenGL support in the graphics card. Modern hardware, in order to find graphics cards that don't support OpenGL, you have to. You're talking about very low-end hardware, like non-smartphones and very old laptops. But the one laptop per child computer doesn't have OpenGL support, but it's an exception.
Well, SMI card actually have very poor OpenGL support. They just do a draw, rectangle, and I think they support only 2 features. So, what's the name? Lemot computers, which are the Chinese netbook based on the Chinese CPU, have poor 3D support. So that's one of those machines who are running free BIOS and free software, which could be affected by such a move. That's why.
Well, if your hardware doesn't support OpenGL, then GNOME Shell is not an application that you'll be able to use. And I can sympathize with you. I happen to work for Oracle, and Oracle's leading desktop project is the Sunray, which also doesn't support OpenGL. So there are a lot of people within the community, such as myself and many of the people who work at Oracle on the desktop, who are working towards finding a good, effective solution for providing a more modern desktop experience on lower-end hardware. Maybe we can work together to find a solution that where we can cooperate. As I said, there's a few options. The GNOME community is currently recommending to continue using the GNOME 2 panel, which still works fine. And as I said, another option might be to implement a GTK3 front end for GNOME Shell. But it probably doesn't make sense to try to go in that approach until the GNOME Shell dialog it becomes a little more stable. At the moment, they continue changing it. They're tweaking the usability. As it rolls out into production and end users start using it, I'm sure there'll be a lot of feedback and there'll be a lot of changes. As I said, it currently doesn't scale well to small devices, so it's going to take some work to redesign the GUI so it not only looks good on laptops and desktops, but scales really well. And personally, I think a really neat approach to solving the problem would be to write a GTK3 front end. But I think it probably makes sense to wait until the GNOME Shell user interface stabilizes more before embarking on that. Otherwise, you're playing too much catch-up, rewriting code as the GNOME Shell community rewrites their code. So I think there are a number of people within the GNOME community who want to support low-end hardware. So as I said, let's work together. And the people at Oracle who need to support Sunray, I'm sure there's other people at other organizations who, like yourself, who need to support older hardware. And we can figure out how to solve that problem, because that's the advantage of using free software, that we can do that.
OK， 因为今天时间的关系，我们这一场 session 到这边结束。那我们用最热烈的掌声，谢谢 Brian 为我们带来这么精彩的演说，谢谢。
Thank you， 再见。
如果大家还有其他的问题的话，也欢迎私下再来找 Brian。谢谢大家。